They didn't just try to steal her house, or her money, that would have been bad enough. No, they aimed higher, or maybe, lower. They tried to steal her asterisk past. Erase her entire life's work, piece by painstaking piece. Imagine the violation, finding fragments of your soul, your history, listed for sale on the dark web, like discarded junk, put there, deliberately, maliciously, by your own flesh and blood, your family. It sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? Like something ripped from a psychological thriller, something you watch safely, from a distance. But this really happened. This wasn't fiction. This was someone's life, torn apart. I'm Victoria, and welcome back to the channel. Here, we talk about stories that lodge themselves under your skin, stories that make you think, make you feel, stories of betrayal, unbelievable resilience, and sometimes, we get stories of truly righteous, absolutely furious, justice. The kind of justice that doesn't just fix the damage, but dismantles the very foundation the wrongdoers stood upon, burns the bridges they used to get there, salt the earth behind them. Today's story, it's one of those, a heavy one, but an important one. It was shared with me by a woman I'll call Agnes. She reached out, wanting her experience heard, wanting others to be aware. Agnes is in her late 70s now. When you first meet her, she seems quiet, unassuming, almost fragile. You might picture her knitting soft blankets, or tending delicate roses in a sun-drenched garden, maybe reading quietly by a window, lost in a book. And she does do those things. She finds peace in them now. But beneath that calm surface, don't be mistaken, there's steel, pure, unyielding steel, forged in decades of meticulous, demanding intellectual work, and tempered in the fires of unimaginable betrayal. Agnes isn't just a sweet old lady. She's a retired archivist, a guardian of history, a keeper of truths, with a mind like a finely indexed library, cross-referenced, annotated, and a memory that misses nothing, absolutely nothing. And that meticulous mind, that lifetime of discipline, that became her weapon when they pushed her too far. You absolutely need to hear how she turned the tables, how this quiet woman, who they thought was fadding, easy prey, unleashed a storm of calculated precision. So stick around, settle in, hit that subscribe button right now. Like right now, you don't want to miss a single detail of how this unfolds. Trust me, the ending is, well, you'll see. Agnes asked me to share her story, to use her voice, her words. She documented everything, naturally, so now I'm going to step back and let her tell you exactly what happened in her own words. It started, subtly, as these insidious things often do, like a change in the air pressure before a storm, almost imperceptible, until suddenly, you realize you can barely breathe. The atmosphere has become toxic, suffocating. My life before was quiet, ordered, predictable, just how I liked it. My routines were my anchor, my work, my purpose, my home, my sanctuary. My husband, David, he passed away nearly 10 years ago now, seems like a lifetime, and like yesterday, we had a good life, a partnership built on shared passions, history, preservation, the tangible weight of the past held carefully in our hands. He was a historian, I was an archivist, a perfect match. Really, our careers intertwined, our interests aligned. We spent countless hours together, researching, cataloguing, debating the nuances of forgotten events. Our home wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was a repository, a living archive, filled wall-to-wall with books, ancient documents, fragile letters, maps telling stories of changing worlds, artifacts whispering secrets of previous lives, some inherited through my family line, generations back, some collected painstakingly over decades, attending dusty auctions, visiting obscure collectors, corresponding with scholars worldwide. Each piece meticulously catalogued, cross-referenced, cared for, loved, not primarily for its monetary value, though some certainly had it, but for its story, its connection to people, to events, its place in the grand tapestry. David and we never had children of our own. Life took a different path for us. Regrets, perhaps a fleeting few, whispers in the quiet moments, but our legacy, we felt, was in the history we preserved, the knowledge we curated, the stories we saved from oblivion, that felt substantial, meaningful. My grandnephew, Julian, he was my closest living relative. His mother, my niece Sarah, she passed young, a tragedy that echoed through the family. I tried to maintain a connection with Julian, sent birthday cards with carefully chosen historical stamps, Christmas gifts, usually books I thought might spark an interest, attended his university graduation, beaming with vicarious pride. He was charming when he put his mind to it, possessed a quick, easy smile, seemed genuinely interested in my work, asked surprisingly insightful questions sometimes, listened intently, or so I thought. Looking back, the performance was flawless. He started visiting more often after David died, especially in the last couple of years. Initially it was sporadic, then weekly, then multiple times a week, bringing his girlfriend, Chloe. She was bright, effervescent, bubbly, always complimenting the house, my things, my taste, me. "Oh, Aunt Agnes, this house is just incredible, like a museum," she'd gush. "And your collections, wow, you have such an amazing eye. This antique clock is stunning, does it still work? I just love this little porcelain figure, she looks so serene." Too much, perhaps, in hindsight, the praise felt manufactured, a little too eager, a little too focused on the asterisk things, but at the time it felt nice to be noticed, to have young energy in the house. They offer to help, constantly. "Oh, Aunt Agnes, let us help you digitize these old records. It must be overwhelming. We can set it all up, make backups," Julian would say, gesturing towards my filing cabinets. Or Chloe would pipe up, "This house is so big for one person. All these treasures, we could help you sort through things, maybe declutter a little, make it more manageable." Declutter, such a harmless modern word, for such insidious, destructive intent. They weren't offering to help me manage my legacy. They were assessing its inventory, for liquidation. I was lonely, I admit it freely now, the silence in the house after David's passing. Sometimes it was deafening, a physical weight, their visits, their supposed interest, their youthful chatter. It filled a void I hadn't fully acknowledged. I let my guard down, bit by bit, welcomed them in, made them tea, shared stories about the artifacts they admired, trusted them, implicitly, foolishly. They seemed so concerned, about my health, my memory, always asking, always probing, gently, "Aunt Agnes, are you sure you remembered to pay the hydro bill? I thought I saw a reminder," even though I knew I'd paid it online. "Didn't we talk about visiting the gallery yesterday? You don't remember making that plan?" Chloe would ask, tilting her head with faux sympathy. "Maybe we should write things down for you more often, Auntie," Julian suggested helpfully. Little comments, dropped like pebbles into a still pond, creating ripples of doubt, making me question my own recollections, my own competence. My work, my archives, they were my sanctuary, my mind, my sharpest tool. I spent decades honing my skills, organizing complex information, cross-referencing obscure details. My system was intricate, layered, physical card catalogues meticulously maintained, cross-indexed with my own custom digital database, created later in my career. I wasn't technophobic. I learned the technology, embraced it, saw it as another powerful way to preserve, to protect, to share. Julian, he had a background in it, worked for some tech company, always talked about systems, security, efficiency. He offered to upgrade my system, make it more secure, more user-friendly, integrate everything seamlessly. "Your current setup is okay, Aunt Agnes," he'd said, peering at my monitor, "but it's vulnerable, old software, not properly backed up to the cloud. I could really modernize it for you, protect your life's work." Foolishly, gratefully, I agreed. Why wouldn't I? He was family, he was knowledgeable. He seemed so eager to help protect the very things I cherished. I gave him access, passwords, administrative rights to my computer, my database, my online accounts, everything. I thought he was helping, protecting my legacy, shielding it from the digital dangers of the modern world. He was, in fact, laying the groundwork for its systematic destruction, and my own. The first real sign, something was truly wrong, wasn't a thunderclap, it was a whisper, a small discrepancy, easily dismissed, if you weren't paying close attention. A file, a digital scan of a rather mundane 19th century household ledger, nothing particularly valuable, just daily entries, but I knew it well. I'd scanned it myself years ago, its metadata, the digital fingerprint, the creation date, the last modification log. It was wrong, off by several months, showing access times late at night, times when I knew I was asleep. I hadn't touched that file in ages. I mentioned it to Julian, casually, trying to sound unconcerned. Julian, did you happen to look at the old Miller Farm ledger scan recently? The system log looks a bit odd. He laughed it off, easily, too easily. Oh, probably just a system glitch, Aunt Agnes. Software updates can do weird things with timestamps. Or maybe a backup process ran, don't worry about it. He sounded so plausible, so reassuring, so dismissive. But the archivist in me, the part that thrives on accuracy, on immutability, on the integrity of the record, it felt a distinct prickle of unease, a dissonant note, in the quiet, predictable hum of my ordered world, a wrong entry in a trusted catalogue. Then other things started happening, small at first, then escalating. Appointments missed, because the reminder on my digital calendar mysteriously vanished. I'd know I put it there, I relied on that calendar, but it would be gone. Emails, important ones from my lawyer regarding David's estate updates, communications from my doctor about routine checkups, they seemed altered, subtle changes, a phrase slightly different, a date incorrect, meanings twisted just enough to make me sound confused, forgetful, when I replied or referenced them later. Aunt Agnes, didn't Dr. Evans say the appointment was next Tuesday? Chloe would ask, peering over my shoulder at the screen. Maybe you misread his email, even though I knew it had said this Tuesday. They'd look at me with such pity, such false, suffocating concern. Aunt Agnes, maybe you should see Dr. Adams again, just for a checkup. Your memory seems a little foggy lately. Chloe would pat my hand, her touch feeling clammy, not comforting. We're just worried about you. We love you. The gaslighting, it was relentless, insidious, a constant drip, 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 designed to make me doubt myself, my own mind, the very tool I relied on, the instrument I had spent a lifetime sharpening. They were trying to blunt it, to make me believe I was the source of the errors, the confusion. They began spending more and more time at the house, Julian often working remotely from my study, claiming his apartment internet was unreliable, spreading his papers out, taking calls, his eyes constantly scanning the room, lingering on the locked cabinets. Chloe was always busy helping organize the upstairs rooms, the guest bedrooms, where many of the smaller, more portable artifacts were stored, jewelry boxes passed down through generations, antique lace fans, historical miniatures, cameo brooches, things easily pocketed. Things started to feel out of place, not dramatically so, at first, just shifted. A particular box of letters moved slightly to the left on its shelf, a drawer in the upstairs cabinet not quite closed, when I knew I'd shut it firmly. The kind of tiny detail you might dismiss, write off as your own forgetfulness, if you weren't obsessively familiar with every single item's precise location, its designated space, learned over decades. That's when the archivist truly kicked in, the instinct for documentation. I started keeping notes, discreetly, in a small, old-fashioned cloth-bound notebook, the kind with unlined pages, hidden away beneath loose floorboards in my closet, a trick learned from researching hidden histories. Times, dates, discrepancies observed, odd comments Julian or Chloe made, verbatim if possible, just observations, facts without interpretation. Yet the archivist's habit: document everything, meticulously, impartially, let the pattern emerge from the data. Then came the bigger blows, the ones that couldn't be dismissed as glitches or forgetfulness. I received a notice from my bank, alerting me to unusual activity, a large withdrawal, several $1,000s, unauthorized. My heart pounded, cold dread washing over me. Julian had an explanation ready, almost too ready, when I confronted him, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Oh, Aunt Agnes, yes, a misunderstanding, totally my fault. I thought you'd approved that payment, for the emergency roof repairs. Remember the contractor who came last week? I paid the deposit, didn't want you to worry about it." He promised to pay it back immediately, sounded so apologetic, so flustered. "I'm so sorry, I should have double-checked." But I hadn't approved any major roof repairs. There was no emergency, just a routine inspection, and the amount was far too high. The unease, it was growing, coiling in my stomach, cold, heavy, like unexpressed fear. It was shortly after that they suggested getting help, someone professional, to manage my finances, my affairs, just to take the burden off you, Aunt Agnes, Chloe said sweetly, placing a sheaf of papers on the table. "You have so much to keep track of, it's confusing for anyone," Julian added smoothly. "This just makes it easier for us to help you, pay bills, handle things if you're not feeling up to it." They had documents ready, glossy brochures from an elder care advisory service, and, nestled amongst them, power of attorney forms, financial and medical, presented with gentle smiles and poisoned words. "It's just a precaution, a safety net," Chloe murmured, "so we can step in and help if you ever need it, God forbid." I hesitated, my hand hovered over the papers. Something deep inside me, the core of my independent spirit, screamed, "No, don't sign, don't give them control." But the doubt they'd so carefully sown, the manufactured confusion, the very real fear of being truly alone, of becoming incapacitated, unable to manage, it made me pause, consider it, for just a moment. That hesitation, that flicker of vulnerability in my eyes, they took it as a victory. I saw it in the slight shift of their expressions, a shared glance. They didn't push harder right then, they backed off slightly, letting the suggestion hang in the air, ready to be revisited, gently, relentlessly. The real turning point, the moment the fog of confusion didn't just lift but burned away entirely, replaced by icy, terrifying, absolute clarity, came unexpectedly, during my research, my sanctuary. I was searching online, late one evening, deep in the digital rabbit holes I loved, researching provenance for a particular set of Civil War letters in my collection, written by a distant relative, an officer under Grant, a routine check, cross-referencing online databases, university archives, auction house records, historical society archives, just ensuring my own documentation was complete, accurate. And then I saw it. On a dark web marketplace, a site known for illicit sales, antiquities of questionable origin, weapons, data, a place I only knew about through professional cybersecurity alerts, accessed via a secure browser. A listing, not just any listing, my blood ran cold. It was a scan, a high-resolution, professionally photographed image, of a letter, my asterisk letter, a deeply personal piece, signed by Abraham Lincoln, addressed to one of my direct ancestors, concerning his service during the war, an irreplaceable piece of family, and national history, passed down carefully, generation to generation. But the horror, the sheer soul-crushing horror, it wasn't just that it was listed for sale, secretly, illicitly, trying to monetize a piece of my heritage. It was the description, the provenance section. It was falsified, completely fabricated, claiming it originated from an entirely different fictional collection, attributing it to a non-existent estate sale in another state, erasing my family's connection, erasing *me, my stewardship, my decades of care. And the seller's encrypted contact details used a specific alphanumeric string, a complex pattern. I stared at it, frozen, my mind racing back. Years ago, Julian, bragging about his online gaming prowess, his elite skills, mentioning a specific complex tag he used, thinking it was clever, untraceable, unique. It was a variation, a coded, slightly altered version, of Julian's old university gaming tag. The structure, the character types, the sequence, it was him, unmistakably, him. He wasn't just stealing my possessions, he was actively, maliciously, rewriting history, my family's history, to profit, to erase me from the narrative, to make it as if I and my family never existed in relation to this precious item. In that instant, the gnawing doubt, the manufactured fear, the creeping loneliness, it vanished, obliterated, vaporized, replaced by a rage so pure, so cold, so absolute. It felt like a physical force, sharpening my senses, clearing my mind, focusing my will, like a laser. The quiet, frail, slightly confused old lady they thought they were manipulating, the one they pitied and plotted against, she died in that moment, right there, staring at the glowing screen, the proof of their utter betrayal. What emerged was the archivist, the analyst, the researcher, the woman who understood patterns, details, evidence, sources, and who now had a single, burning, unwavering focus. Justice, not just recovery, not just restitution, but absolute, uncompromising, meticulously documented justice. They had underestimated me, profoundly, dangerously. They saw age, perceived weakness, assumed loneliness made me malleable. They didn't see the decades of discipline, the meticulous mind honed on detail, the deep, abiding, almost sacred passion for truth, for the integrity of the record. They didn't realize they had just declared war on a master strategist, hiding in plain sight, behind reading glasses and a quiet demeanor. My first step was silence, absolute silence, and observation, intense observation. I pretended nothing had changed, played the part they'd cast for me, perhaps even leaned into it slightly, asking slightly more muddled questions, appearing a little more grateful for their help, sighing about my forgetfulness, while my mind worked, furiously, silently, behind the mask. I needed proof, undeniable proof, concrete, irrefutable, not just of the theft, which the listing strongly suggested, but of the entire campaign, the gaslighting, the digital manipulation, the deliberate attempt to frame me as incompetent, mentally unfit, to justify their eventual control, perhaps even institutionalization. The thought sent a fresh wave of cold fury through me. I remembered my old skills, techniques learned during a brief early career stint working with classified government documents, long before I settled into the more peaceful world of historical archives, skills I hadn't needed or used in decades: observation, subtle information gathering, compartmentalization, creating parallel records, unseen, unknown. I reactivated old email accounts Julian didn't know about, simple webmail addresses I'd kept dormant, set up hidden cloud storage, encrypted, using privacy-focused services he wouldn't track, began meticulously documenting everything, every interaction, every discrepancy, every suspicious login attempt flagged by my system. Using screen recording software, the kind journalists use for investigations, secretly installed on my own computer when Julian wasn't around, I captured him accessing my financial accounts online, browsing high-end watch websites, transferring small, less noticeable amounts of money. I recorded him altering draft emails in my account, changing appointment details in my calendar, deleting call logs from my phone which I'd synced to the computer. His smug confidence, his utter carelessness born of arrogance, became my greatest asset. He thought I wouldn't notice, or wouldn't understand the logs even if I did. He was wrong. I cross-referenced the captured digital manipulations with my hidden handwritten notes in the cloth-bound notebook. Dates, times, conversations, his casual lies, Chloe's supportive falsehoods, building a detailed timeline, a damning narrative, evidence upon evidence, layer upon layer. The artifacts, the physical objects, that was harder, more dangerous. I couldn't confront them, not yet. That would alert them, scatter them, allow them to destroy evidence or hide the remaining items. I needed to know the full extent of the theft, and I needed leverage, solid, irrefutable leverage. I remembered my network, my lifeline, old colleagues, trusted friends made over decades in the surprisingly tight-knit world of archives, libraries, museums, preservation societies, people who valued accuracy, integrity, above all else, people who knew my reputation, my meticulousness, my professional standing, people who would believe *me. I reached out carefully, discreetly, using my secure old email addresses, phrasing my requests obliquely at first. To Clara, a retired digital forensics expert, sharp as a tack even in retirement, who owed me a significant favor from years ago, when I helped her authenticate a notoriously difficult medieval manuscript for a major museum exhibit, saving her professional embarrassment. To Ben, a sharp, semi-retired lawyer specializing in provenance disputes and cultural property law, a man known for his tenacity, his bulldog-like persistence, and his profound dislike of bullies, especially those who preyed on the vulnerable. I didn't tell them everything. At first, just enough to pique their professional interest, concerns about unusual digital security breaches, irregularities discovered in my personal digital records, potential provenance issues arising with certain items in my collection. I framed it as seeking professional consultation, advice. Clara, intrigued by the technical challenge, dove in remotely, with carefully granted limited access I provided. She analyzed the metadata logs Julian thought he'd cleverly wiped or altered, recovered deleted file fragments from hidden system caches, traced IP addresses from the dark web listing access, confirmed the digital manipulation, the unauthorized access. Beyond any doubt, her report was cold, factual, and utterly devastating. Ben listened patiently during our encrypted video calls, his eyes sharp, perceptive, missing nothing in my carefully worded explanations. He started asking pointed questions, seeing the connections I hadn't explicitly stated, saw the bigger picture emerging, the sinister pattern, the potential for felony elder abuse, significant fraud, criminal conspiracy. He grew quietly angry on my behalf. His involvement shifted from consultation to strategic planning. While they worked diligently in the background, gathering their ammunition, I focused on the physical theft, the tangible objects. I knew I couldn't just accuse Julian and Chloe. They'd deny everything, play the victims, maybe even accelerate their plans, dispose of anything they still held. I needed a trap, a carefully constructed scenario, using their own greed, their own predictability, against them. I remembered Julian's particular, almost obsessive interest in a set of relatively minor, but historically interesting, colonial era coins, kept in a small, locked mahogany display case, on a shelf in the study. He'd asked about their specific value several times, researched them on his phone while visiting. Chloe had admired them too, commenting on their cute little pictures. Using my archival preservation skills, my high-resolution flatbed scanner, specialized imaging software, and some contacts in the museum replica field, I commissioned, and personally finished, near-perfect replicas of those specific coins, indistinguishable, to the casual eye, even to a moderately informed one. But I embedded microscopic markers within the replica material, unique identifiers, invisible without significant magnification and specific lighting, and I subtly altered the accompanying documentation card inside the case, creating tiny, deliberate, factual errors. dates slightly off, mint marks misidentified, errors only a true numismatic expert, or the thief desperately trying to authenticate them for sale, would eventually focus on and question. I carefully swapped the real coins, hidden safely away, for the identical-looking replicas, placing the real valuable coins securely, off-site, in a safety deposit box under a trusted former colleague's name, someone Julian and Chloe had never met, never even heard of. Then I waited, maintaining my facade, playing the part of the slightly dotty, grateful Aunt Agnes. It was exhausting, soul-destroying, having to smile at them, make small talk, accept their full sympathy, knowing what they were doing, what they intended, but the cold rage, the unwavering focus on justice, it fueled me, kept me centered, kept me acting. It didn't take long, their greed was impatient. About 2 weeks later, I accidentally left the small antique key to the mahogany display case, visible, partially hidden under some papers, on my desk before leaving the house for a supposed extended doctor's appointment, followed by a non-existent lunch with an old friend, an appointment I made sure was clearly marked on my now compromised digital calendar, which I knew Julian checked. I had already installed tiny, state-of-the-art, motion-activated cameras weeks before, during a time Julian and Chloe were away on a weekend trip they'd boasted about, concealed strategically, inside hollowed-out books on the shelves, disguised as decorative objects, behind a clock covering the study, especially the display case and the upstairs hallway, near the room where other smaller items had gone missing, fed wirelessly, encrypted, to my hidden cloud account. Accessible only via my secure devices. When I returned home that afternoon, feigning tiredness from my appointments, the key was back in its usual hiding spot in the desk drawer, the display case, locked, everything looked perfectly normal, undisturbed. But the footage, reviewed later that night, securely, in my locked bedroom, told a different story, crystal clear, damning. Julian entering the study shortly after I'd left, checking the hallway quickly, glancing at my calendar on the computer screen, spotting the key, his eyes lighting up, moving directly to the display case, unlocking it carefully, wearing gloves, smart but not smart enough, carefully removing the replica coins, examining them briefly, placing them in a small pouch taken from his pocket, locking the case, wiping the key, returning it precisely. His movements efficient, practiced. Then, later, the camera in the upstairs hallway captured Chloe, slipping into the guest room, opening the antique jewelry box on the dresser, pocketing a small, antique silver locket on a chain, a piece my grandmother had worn. Its monetary value wasn't huge, but its sentimental value, immeasurable, her expression as she slipped it into her purse, caught in perfect detail, smug, triumphant, entitled. I had them cold, hard, undeniable proof, recorded, secured, ready. Now it was time to meticulously, systematically tighten the net. Okay, pause, just take a breath. Can you even imagine the level of calculated betrayal, the sheer heartless cruelty, stealing history, methodically gaslighting and framing the very person who guarded it, their own family, just for money, and perhaps, out of some twisted sense of malice or entitlement, and Agnes, this quiet, meticulous woman, forced to become a silent hunter in her own home, setting a trap, using their own greed and arrogance as the bait. It's intense, right? The precision is just astounding. If you're finding this as gripping and infuriating as I am, take a second, hit that like button, let me know you're here, listening to Agnes's incredible fight back. Okay, deep breath, back to her story, the final act, the reckoning. Armed with the irrefutable video evidence, Clara's comprehensive digital forensic report, Ben's emerging multi-layered legal strategy, and my own meticulous documentation, the next phase began, the offensive phase. Ben advised a multi-pronged approach, not just a quiet lawsuit. No, this required more. It required sunlight, disinfectant, involving the relevant authorities, and, carefully, leveraging the power of the professional community, my community. First, the trap regarding the coins needed to be sprung, decisively. We knew, through discreet inquiries Ben made via trusted contacts in the collectibles world, that Julian had already contacted a specialist dealer, a reputable numismatist known for handling historical coins, trying to get the replicas authenticated and valued for potential consignment. He used an alias, of course, Mr. Smith, but the description of the coins, their supposed provenance, matched perfectly. The dealer was cautious, asked for photographs. Ben contacted the dealer directly, explained the situation calmly, professionally, provided proof of the replicas, photographs of the embedded microscopic markers, documentation of the real coin's status and location. The dealer, a respected professional, was horrified at being potentially involved, even unwittingly, in trafficking stolen or fraudulent goods. He agreed immediately to cooperate fully with us and with law enforcement. He arranged a formal appraisal meeting with Mr. Smith at his secure office, with experienced plainclothes economic crimes detectives discreetly present in an adjoining room, ready to step in. Julian walked right into it, confident, arrogant, no doubt imagining the payout. He presented the replica coins, laid them out on the velvet appraisal cloth, ready to talk provenance and price. The moment the dealer placed the first coin under the high-powered digital microscope, projecting the image onto a screen, and pointed out the embedded marker Ben had described, cross-referencing it with the photos Ben had supplied, it was over. Julian's face, according to the detective's later report, went from smug confidence to utter disbelief, then pale panic. He was caught, red-handed, attempting to sell stolen, or rather, replica, property under false pretenses. Fraud, plain and simple. The arrest was quiet, professional, but utterly devastating for Julian, led away in handcuffs from the hushed rare coin dealership, his aspirations of easy wealth crumbling around him. Simultaneously, as Julian was being processed, Ben filed a comprehensive civil lawsuit, a meticulously detailed document, hundreds of pages long, against both Julian and Chloe, naming them explicitly, detailing everything, the systematic financial theft, supported by bank records and Julian's recorded confessions, the sophisticated digital manipulation, backed by Clara's unshakable forensic report, the relentless gaslighting campaign. Citing specific incidents, dates, and quotes from my hidden notebook and recordings, the theft of numerous artifacts, listing known missing items, including the Lincoln letter and the silver locket, supported by the dark web listing evidence and the hidden camera footage, the conspiracy to defraud and exert undue influence, painting a clear picture of their coordinated actions. The lawsuit sought not just recovery of all stolen assets and compensatory damages for my emotional distress and financial losses, but specifically cited statutes related to elder abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress, breach of fiduciary trust, and requested significant punitive damages, explicitly designed to punish, severely, and deter others. But we didn't stop there. That addressed the legal and financial aspects, my reputation, my life's work, my standing within my own professional world, had been deliberately attacked. It needed to be defended, publicly, decisively. Ben helped me draft a carefully worded factual statement, not emotional, not accusatory, just, precise, like an archival finding aid. We distributed it strategically through my extensive professional network, to historical societies across the country, museum curators I'd collaborated with, archive associations I belonged to, university history departments, online forums for preservationists, people who knew me, respected my work, trusted my integrity. The statement didn't scream vengeance, it spoke with quiet, documented, irrefutable authority. It detailed the systematic attempt by named individuals, Julian and Chloe, to steal and falsify provenance for historical artifacts under my care. It outlined the digital manipulation techniques used to facilitate the scheme and discredit me, It mentioned the ongoing legal proceedings, criminal and civil. It presented the core evidence, calmly, factually, including references to the forensic report and video evidence. It concluded with a reaffirmation of my commitment to ethical archival practice and the preservation of historical truth. The reaction from my community was immediate and overwhelming. Outrage, disbelief that anyone would target *me, solidarity, support, colleagues, institutions I'd worked with for years rallied around me instantly, offers of help poured in, pro bono consultations, access to databases, letters of support for the court case, but more importantly, more devastatingly for Julian and Chloe, their names became poison overnight in the very circles they aspired to join or cynically exploit, their reputations utterly shattered, irrevocably. Chloe, who worked in marketing for a firm that valued its public image, was fired, almost immediately. Her company couldn't afford the association with documented fraud and elder abuse. The story, even in its careful professional dissemination, had leaked. Julian, his promising IT career, imploded. The documented evidence of sophisticated digital manipulation, identity theft, financial fraud made him untouchable, radioactive in the tech industry, where trust and security are paramount. Professional certifications were reviewed, potentially revoked. They were facing serious criminal charges, a massive, potentially ruinous civil lawsuit, complete public disgrace in the fields they operated in. Financial ruin seemed inevitable. Their carefully constructed lives, built on charm and deceit, were systematically dismantled by documented facts. They tried, of course, to fight back through their newly hired expensive lawyers, denials, counter-accusations, trying to paint me as a vindictive, confused old woman seeking revenge for perceived slights, trying desperately to salvage something, anything, from the wreckage. But the evidence was too strong, too meticulous, too comprehensive, too well documented. The digital footprint Clara had uncovered, the crystal-clear video footage, the independent forensic analysis, the cooperating witness, my own detailed contemporaneous logs, my long-standing impeccable reputation, versus theirs, now utterly tarnished. There was simply no contest. The truth, backed by irrefutable proof, prevailed. They lost everything. The court judgment in the civil case was severe, far exceeding what Ben had initially hoped for: full restitution for all the stolen funds, plus interest, punitive damages assessed at a level that wiped out any significant assets they had, or hoped to acquire in the foreseeable future, garnished future earnings, permanent restraining orders, keeping them legally distanced from me, my home, my life, forever. The criminal charges resulted in convictions for both, for fraud, conspiracy, theft. Given their lack of prior records, they avoided lengthy prison time, receiving suspended sentences, long periods of probation, extensive community service, mandatory counseling, but a permanent criminal record, an indelible mark, a public record they could never erase, a constant reminder. The stolen artifacts, those precious pieces of history and family memory that hadn't been sold before I caught on, were recovered during the investigation, returned to my care, each one carefully checked, documented again. The Lincoln letter, thankfully, hadn't sold. The dark web listing was taken down, its digital trail leading directly back to Julian's devices, providing yet more crucial evidence for the prosecution. Holding it in my hands again, safe, felt like reclaiming a piece of my own soul. The entire process was brutal, emotionally draining, reliving the betrayal in depositions, facing their lawyers' attempts to twist reality, seeing the wreckage of their young lives, lives they had ruined through their own greed and cruelty. Was there satisfaction? Yes, I cannot deny it, a grim, hard-won satisfaction. Justice had been served, not gentle, forgiving justice, but the harsh, necessary kind, the kind that cauterizes a deep wound, prevents further infection, the kind that sends a clear message. My home is quiet again, but it's a different quiet now, not lonely, but peaceful, secure, reclaimed. The archives are safe, protected. My history, my family's story, remains intact. My mind is clear, sharp, and vindicated. I installed a state-of-the-art security system. Shortly after, both physical, cameras, sensors, reinforced locks, and digital, new hardware, advanced encryption, constant monitoring. Trust, once shattered so profoundly, is a fragile thing, easily broken, harder to rebuild, perhaps impossible, with some. A lesson learned, late in life, but learned well. I'm more wary now, more guarded, less inclined to accept help unquestioningly, but not broken, not diminished, stronger, perhaps, tempered, like fine steel. They tried to erase me, to reduce my life's work, my passion, my history, my very identity, to mere commodities, to silence my voice, steal my agency, assume my irrelevance. They failed utterly, completely. They poked a sleeping lion, mistaking the calm breathing of age for the weakness of sleep, and they paid the price, a steep, ruinous, entirely self-inflicted price. My legacy is intact, secure, not just in the carefully preserved documents, the cherished artifacts, but in the knowledge, the certainty, that even in the face of profound betrayal, fueled by righteous, controlled anger, guided by cold logic and meticulous planning, I fought back, with the tools I knew best, and I won. That is a story, worth preserving. Wow, just wow, Agnes's story. It's a testament, isn't it, to incredible resilience, to the power of a sharp, disciplined mind, underestimated perhaps because of age, and, let's be honest, the profound motivating force of pure, justified, righteous fury. She didn't just get her things back, she didn't just get restitution, she dismantled their lives, systematically, piece by piece, using the very tools of precision, evidence, and documentation that had defined her own life's work. The archivist's revenge, served cold, and documented in triplicate. Was it harsh? Absolutely. Some might even call her methods ruthless, unforgiving, but was it justice? Given the depth of the betrayal, the calculated, cruel gaslighting, the attempt to utterly destroy her identity, her sanity, and her legacy. I think it was necessary justice, proportionate justice. What do you think? Was Agnes's response the right one? Was it pure justice? Or did it border on revenge? Where is that line? Let me know your thoughts, down in the comments. I truly value hearing your perspectives, and I read every single one. This story, it's such a stark reminder, isn't it, that vulnerability doesn't always equate to weakness, that reservoirs of strength can lie hidden beneath a quiet surface, and that sometimes, the quietest people, the ones you might overlook, harbor the fiercest determination, the most formidable resolve, when pushed too far, when something they hold sacred is threatened. Thank you for listening today, for being part of this community, this space, where we share these powerful, sometimes difficult, but always important, stories about the complexities of human nature, about finding strength in the darkest times. If Agnes's fight for her history, her identity, resonated with you, or if you know someone who might need to hear a story about resilience like this, please share this video, spread her message of strength. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next story, because believe me, there are always more stories waiting in the archives, waiting to be told. I'm Victoria, thank you for spending this time with me. Stay strong, stay aware, protect your history, and I'll see you in the next one.